Well, I did Pokemon, I did Digimon, might as well complete the early 2000s collectible kids media franchise Triforce. That sounded better in my head. We're talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! Today. Few anime are as iconic as Yu-Gi-Oh! Sure, a lot of people play Pokemon, and the real ones know all about Digimon, but everybody played and watched Yu-Gi-Oh! If you showed up to the playground and you didn't have at least one copy of a Blue Eyes White Dragon, you were a bitch-ass nigga. But how did we even get here? Well, I'd say more than other monster collecting shows, we loved Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of the anime series that debuted in the early 2000s. Unlike Magic or even the Pokemon TCG where you had to read rules, if you watched the anime, you'd have a general idea of how to play the card game, regardless of any made-up bullshit that they added in that anime. And they added a lot. Sure, at the start we didn't know what we were doing, but now that we're experienced duelists who have grown up, we still don't know what we're doing because cards have way too many words on them. Hey, as long as it doesn't have the word negate, I'm going to combo off. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is very special to me personally, because it was technically the first remotely competitive thing I did. All I wanted to do when I was a kid was buy packs so I can get better cards so I could beat my brother, and get a copy of Dark Magician Girl because that made me feel funny. And what better motivations than those do I need? However, I stopped paying attention to the meta and anime series around the late 2010s, and I've just noticed over the past few years, my god, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has changed a lot. So since I guess I'm the children's anime retrospective guy now, I wanted to go through every Yu-Gi-Oh! Series since the beginning, up to the latest one, Go Rush, and see how Yu-Gi-Oh! Evolved over the years. And of course, what better way to start it off than with the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. That's right, the one we all know and love from our childhoods, the first season of Yu-Gi-Oh! Here it is. Wow. It looks better than I remembered. Even the subtitles. Yeah, for those that might be confused, let me explain. Yu-Gi-Oh! Started off as a manga in Shonen Jump, created by the late great Kazuki Takahashi. The original premise was a sort of horror manga revolving around Takahashi's love for games, where the players would be playing for usually their lives in shadow games. One chapter, Takahashi decided to have some familiar characters play a card game based on some brand new not Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game called Magic the Gathering. I don't know, it's not Yu-Gi-Oh! So who cares? But this card game in the manga received very positive feedback from fans, and they wanted more, so Takahashi decided to shift the focus to be more around that card game, and the rest is history. So, what in the name of Exodia is this non-dueling BS? Well, this is technically the first anime series of Yu-Gi-Oh! Made by Toei Animation, based on that initial run of the manga before the Duelist Kingdom arc, which is where the Yu-Gi-Oh! We know starts. And it's where we're going to start because, well, while there's no throwing down face down, speeches about friendship, or pot of greeds, whatever that does, it's still an anime called Yu-Gi-Oh! And there are actually some things in the series that explain things that Duel Monsters leaves out or actually come back in that series. The last thing before we begin, yes, there are subtitles on screen. That's because this series was kind of hard to find for me, and I found this whole season on the Internet Archive, and the subtitles are baked into it. I could, in theory, get better footage, but most of you listen to this in the background while spanking it to your favorite hentai anyways, so live with it. Episode 1, Furious Battle, Yami Game. First we hear the opening, and it's fine, doesn't really get catchy till the chorus, none of which I'm going to play because my Pokemon video is still blocked from putting a few seconds of a Japanese opening, so no more of that. But if you've seen Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, you've heard a bit of it because the jingle that they use for their opening is this theme. I think the best part of the opening is the title, A Yell of Thirst. That goes pretty hard. And look, despite this season being in Japanese, I'll be referring to everyone by their dub names. Because for the rest of this video series, I'll be watching each season dubbed where applicable. Just don't pay attention to the subtitles, okay? It's not Anzu, it's Taya. It's not a Yami game, it's a Shadow game. And it's not Yugi, it's Yugi. So the series begins appropriately in ancient Egypt, where a group of explorers find the Shadow Box and die. R.I.P. Cut to modern day Japan, where we meet Yugi, a complete nerd who instead of having friends, he just sits alone by himself talking to himself about, oh, hey, it's that box that kills people. Because Yugi's a nerd, he gets teased a lot, especially by his classmate Joey. Thankfully, he's got some people looking out for him, like Tristan, a member of the Beautification Club, whatever that is, and his wife, Taya. And then, of course, there's everyone's favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Character, MIHO. Who? Well, whoever she is, Joey and Tristan simp for her heart, and they offer to get her lunch. On their way to get it, they run into a JoJo character, Yugioh, a member of the Public Morals Committee. Meanwhile, Yugi tries to rizz up Taya by showing him his Egyptian death box, which has a strange puzzle inside. He says he found it in his house, which is also a game store, and that it must have belonged to the previous owner of the house. Writing on the box says whoever solves the puzzle will have their wish come true. But Yugi's gonna have a hard time since it turns out Joey stole a piece of the puzzle and chucks it in the river. Later that day on his way home, Yugi runs into Yugioh, who tells him that he heard about him getting bullied, and he's gonna handle the bullying personally. Wow, Yugioh's such a nice guy. When Yugi gets home, oh whoa, the puzzle talk thing really worked. She actually showed up at his house. And waiting at Yugi's house is his grandpa, Solomon.
それにしてもあんずちゃん、しばらく見んうちに大きくなって、特に胸じゃ、いよいよ8時風の大台ってとこが
And apparently on the side of owning a game store, he's a predator. Well, when Grandpa's not sexually harassing teenagers, he's delivering exposition, as he tells the kids about how the puzzle was found in Egypt, Shadow Games, and that its official name is the Millennium Puzzle. The next day, Ushio shows Yugi he's solved his bullying problem by beating the shit out of his bullies. It just works. Wait, why did he beat up Tristan? He stopped Joey. He wasn't a part of the bullying. Yugi, of course, wants Ushio to stop because he says they are his Tomodachi. Ushio says, sure, whatever, he'll leave him alone. But Yugi still needs to pay up for his services, a whopping 20,000 yen. Anxious about being blackmailed, Yugi drowns himself in finishing the puzzle, trying to escape reality. He manages to do it, but is missing one piece. He heads back to school thinking he dropped it there and runs into good old Ushio again, who doesn't like that Yugi doesn't have his money and educates him on the consequences. That's when Joey and Tristan show up, as they were nearby, since Joey, after hearing Yugi call him Tomodachi, he jumped into the river to get the missing puzzle piece. They hand it to Yugi and try to beat up Ushio, but fail hard. But when Yugi puts the last piece in, we find out his wish is to have real friends. Wow, even I want to beat him up. I guess I can't now, as the last piece turns Yugi into a Giga Chad, who puts Ushio into a shadow game, where they dangle on a building and flip over cards where they go up by how much the card is worth, while the other gets closer to the ground. Ushio loses but disobeys the rules when he can't accept his loss, which causes him to fall into... what the hell? Turns out he's fine though, just a little hospitalized, no big deal. The next day, everything's swell. Yugi's now wearing the Millennium Puzzle around his neck, and Joey tells Yugi he brought a treasure for him. Friendship. Aw. What a couple of... and the episode ends. So yeah, if you know Duel Monsters, that story might have sounded a little familiar, but we'll get there when we get there. As far as first episodes go, it's okay. I mean, it did a good job of establishing all the characters and their personalities, but I'm not really sure on the tone of what the show is trying to be. Like, one minute it's a slice of life show, then it's about extortion and bullying, and then we're in a shadow game that seemed kind of convoluted. Then it really hammered in that friendship stuff at the end, which, yes, I know comparing it to later series in Yu-Gi-Oh!, this was tame with the friendship stuff. I don't know, to me it seemed kind of all over the place. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't solid enough to get me personally hooked to tune into the next episode. I mean, I don't really have a choice because I'm doing this whole series, but if I was watching this casually, then I probably wouldn't check it out again. But look, can I be real about it though? Can I be real about it though? As far as we are concerned, this season does not matter for the anime. It gets retconned and basically forgotten about, so I'm not going to go into as much detail for the rest of this unless I actually find it interesting or it's something that does tie into Duel Monsters, like a character or an event or something. And with that said, let's see what the rest of the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like, huh? Episode 2, Devil Gamer, Trapped from Hell. The next day at school, everyone is friends now, hooray, but Taya seems to ditch a lot after school to do something else. Joey naturally assumes it's because she's going around prostituting herself for money. Wow, this version of Joey seems like such a likable guy. MIHO, worried for Taya, follows her, but the next day she starts going with Taya after school, leading to Joey assuming they are tag teaming. Tristan, who has a thing for MIHO, follows them, but then the next day he's going with them after school, and yeah, you can assume what Joey thinks they're doing. Finally, Yugi and Joey decide to follow the three, and it turns out that they just have part-time jobs at a place called Burger World. It's a secret because part-time jobs are forbidden by the school. And speaking of stuff that ties into Duel Monsters, we see Taya has this job so she can save up to go to America to become a dancer. Learning of this, Yugi and Joey promise to keep her job a secret. Oh yeah, kinda slipped my mind. I guess, for your information, just so you know, a super dangerous criminal has recently escaped from jail. Yeah, that kinda happened. And it turns out he's hiding in Burger World. Kids help the detective snuff him out, but that's when we find out that the boss of Burger World is a completely different escaped criminal that is now holding Taya at gunpoint. Then instead of escaping, he decides to hang out at the restaurant to drink and smoke. Okay. Well, I'm sure that's fine. It's not like there's some ancient Egyptian spirit that will force him into a shadow game. Oh, right. I'm not going to describe the game they play. It's pretty stupid and it only lasts like 2 minutes. Either way, the day is saved. Taya quits her job, saying now she can spend some more time with Yugi, and to maybe find out who was that mysterious man that saved her, because she was blindfolded during the whole game, so she only heard Yami Yugi's voice and only knows it sounds like Yugi. Man, what a weird-ass episode. How'd we go from a part-time job to the main waifu being held at gunpoint in the span of an ad break? I mean, I'll give the show one thing so far, it's pretty creative. Episode 3, Clash, the Strongest Monster. Okay, well, I don't know if this happened this soon in the manga, but yes, we are already here at the episode that would shape not just the future of Yu-Gi-Oh!, but mine and most likely a lot of your futures as well. At school, there's a hot new card game all the kids are playing called Duel Monsters, and the excitement doesn't stop as the class gets a new transfer student, Seto Kaiba, the heir of the famous Kaiba Corporation. Also, why were Yugi and Kaiba the only two names that didn't change in the dub? That's a legit question I have, I just want to know. And anyway, Kaiba is actually super nice, befriending Yugi and showing him his Duel Monsters card collection. Wow, look at all the rares. And fair is fair, as Kaiba asks to see a rare card that has come into Yugi's game store. That card is the Blue Eyes Dragon. It hasn't gotten the white yet. Kaiba tries to trade Jisan for it, but he refuses when Gramps says he keeps it for sentimental value since it was given to him by a friend, and Kaiba leaves with no resistance. Oh well, that was uneventful. The next day, Kaiba convinces Yugi to bring the card to school though, where Kaiba swaps it for a fake. Joey and Tristan notice this and confront Kaiba, who sicks his goons on them. That's when Yugi shows up, saying he knew Kaiba switched the cards, but hoped he'd return it, because that card is his grandpa's heart. Kaiba says that's stupid, it's a piece of cardboard, and fucks off. That's when our boy arrives, and of course challenges Kaiba to a game of Duel Monsters. And it actually plays pretty similar to how we know it today. It's got monsters, attack and defense, life points, even magic cards are in this version, like Monster Reborn. The meta is already broken. The only difference is they place cards on a map, and depending on where the monster is placed, they get buffed or debuffed. Kind of similar to what a field spell will turn out to be. I think it's pretty interesting to see this beta version of the card game before, they actually ironed out all the rules. We even see alpha versions of future cards that would later become iconic. Anyway, for the first time, Yami doesn't win. Instead, Kaiba is such a pro gamer, he manages to tie the game and escapes, leaving the blue eyes behind. But Kaiba can't stand the fact that he tied with someone at his game, so he swears he will get Yugi back for this someday and beat him at that children's card game. So yeah, there you have it. That's the very first appearance of Duel Monsters in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's kind of cool not only seeing how some cards would shape out, but even seeing how Yugi and Kaiba's rivalry started. Episode 4, Stolen the Mystical Super Rare Watch. MIHO asks Tristan to stand in line for her to get a brand new watch called a D-Shock, but he's got a piece, so he gets Yugi to stand in his place. Luckily, he gets the last one, but this Negro watch collector says he doesn't deserve it because he doesn't appreciate good timekeeping devices. So he steals it from Tristan and gets mind crushed in the Shadow Game. Episode 5, it's now revealed Yugi's secret. An exhibit on ancient Egypt is in town, and the gang go to see it. The greedy runner of the exhibit, though, says he wants to display Yugi's puzzle just for a day, but not really, because he wants to sell it. Luckily, this Egyptian guy, Shadi, plays a shadow game with the curator using his Millennium Scales and gets Yugi's puzzle back, but doesn't return it until he uses his Millennium Key to see that Yugi has another personality in his head, who, despite the title of this episode, does not actually reveal any secrets in this episode. Episode 6, Desperate Situation, Passionate Battle of Friendship. Real Slim Shadi isn't done being an ancient Egyptian, as he gets Granddad's friend, an archaeologist, who brought the exhibit in the last episode. Also, Shadi's kinda salty that Yami made him look like a bitch when he entered Yugi's mind palace. So he possesses Taya and Tristan and forces Yami to play a shadow game, which Shadi loses, and then Yami makes a speech about friendship, but he promises to return. If you haven't noticed by my recaps of the last couple episodes, this is pretty much the rest of these episodes, so get used to me saying a couple sentences. Episode 7, Underhanded Trick, Digital Pet Riot. Looks like Yugi's classmate Hayama is getting bullied by the local ugly bastard Kujirata. But who cares about that, because everyone's now into Digimon Tamagotchi, these little digital pets you raise and breed. And MIHO convinces Tristan to raise hers for her so she can win a trip to Australia. Tristan manages to actually raise it really strong, which beats Kujirata's super expensive and special Digimon. And to get revenge, Kujirata kidnaps MIHO. That's an escalation for losing a Digimon tournament. But it turns out Kujirata is innocent, and the real bully is actually Hayama, who is a weird sadist raising real people as his pets. Ew. Nothing a good shadow game can't fix. Episode 8, The Four Heavenly Kings, finally on the move. The gang is back to playing some Duel Monsters, and after absolutely destroying MIHO with his Tier 0 deck, Yugi is called to the sexy nurse's office because she wants to play him. He loses, and she takes his best card, Neon Knight, but says she'll give it back if he beats her. But that isn't just any sexy nurse, it's actually a puppet, created by this old dude, Baron Didery Sheldon. That is his name. I just realized I'm not really on camera much, so I'm just kind of like leaning back all casual talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm having a chill time, alright? Baron Didery Sheldon was hired by ya boy Kaiba, who's back and wants to see the Yami Yugi he faced before by having Baron challenge him, because Didery is one of Kaiba's 4 Heavenly King of Games. I'm honestly not sure how to translate what they call these guys properly, but that's what I'm going to call them. Later, when Yugi's trying to play the hot new fighting game Mace the Dark Age, Kaiba and Baron kidnap him to force him to play another game of DM, which does bring out Yami, and let me tell you, this is the biggest example of early Yu-Gi-Oh! The whole duel is the two playing cards, then saying some made-up bullshit that shouldn't matter on why their monster won. It honestly reminded me of how we kids played the game back in the day before they actually had official rules. Anyway, Yugi wins and the old man goes home to fuck his dolls. Explosion, Yo-Yo Ultimate Technique. Joey has some sick yo-yo moves, and while MIHO is impressed, Taya points out yo-yos aren't cool anymore even when this anime came out. And he should be careful because there's a gang of yo-yo wielding gangsters going around. Because of course there is. And they might have gotten to him as Joey is missing the next day. The group go to his house and see he has an alcoholic and possibly abusive father. We just kind of glance over that. And they find Joey, who's actually palling around with the yo-yo gangsters because they were actually his old crew back in the day in middle school. After finding out he's being forced to run with them for some reason, Yugi and Tristan try to have a conversation with his new friends. What the fuck? Where does a high schooler even get a yo-yo with retractable spikes? in 1998. Joey comes to save Yugi, and after some fighting and stuff, turns out he joined them so they leave Yugi and the rest alone. And Joey's new yo-yo move accidentally gives him a peek at the Deke. Episode 10, the approaching beautiful teacher's secret mask. After some stuff I don't want to explain about Taya and MIHO helping a girl confess to Joey, Taya tries to get the school's rules revised so she can freely work part-time. But this bitch sensei wants to keep all the rules. She wants more rules, but she uses her beauty to sabotage Taya, even somehow convincing other teachers to fuck with her. What? Too bad for her, Taya's got an ancient Egyptian boyfriend who loves playing shadow games. Episode 11, the rumored Cupmon's new arrival. Yugi helps his friend Wadashibe court MIHO by using Capumon, capsule monsters you get from a gacha machine, and fight with them. I've actually played capsule monsters. All of them. There's a reason they don't make it anymore. Of course, it turns out Wadashibe is a crazy man who poisons Joey, Taya, and Tristan for trying to get in the way of his love. Nothing a good shadow game can't fix. Also, Wadashibe delivers my favorite line so far in this whole show. That's iconic. Episode 12, the extremely lucky enemy, the undefeated legend. So Joey casually slips he had to pay his way through school since elementary school, since his dad is a gambling drunk. Wow, that sucks, man. Well, forget about that. A new transfer student, Ryuichi Fua, arrives, who has incredible luck, basically coasting through life with game show winnings. Seeing this, Joey wants to be his student so he can be lucky and get enough money to leave his deadbeat dad. But unfortunately, Ryuichi might have luck, but not common decency, because not only is he a dick, but he's also the second of Kaiba's 4 Heavenly Gamer Kings, who only came to Domino High School to battle Yugi in the game show. Oh yeah, did I ever mention that their town is called Domino City? That's the name of the town. But Joey takes Yugi's place because he wants to win that prize. Joey does not win the prize, but then a shadow game makes Fua lose his luck. I guess luck isn't a skill. Chapter 13, targeting the female students, the Prophet's Fangs. A fortune-telling guy at school has all the women flaunting over him to tell them their futures, except Taya and MIHO. And he doesn't really care about MIHO because she's an idiot, but for some reason he's really offended that Taya doesn't want any palm readings. Well, it's because he's actually into Taya, so much so that he chloroforms her. What the fuck? Too bad for him, the only thing in his future is a shadow game. Oh yeah, and of course he had no powers, he faked all of it, making the predictions come true himself, including that another student's house would burn down, which means he committed arson? Yugi, this is no time for games, call the police. It's amazing how many high schoolers in this show just casually get away with committing these crimes. Taya is saved and notices the guy who saved her was hurt on his right hand. And the next day she notices Yugi's been hurt on his right hand. What could this mean? Part 14, an explosion game makes for the worst date. Taya wants to know if Yugi was the Yugi that saved her, so the two go to a pool on a sort of date, and damn! Ugh, don't let Grandpa see her in that. Anyway, Taya tries several ways to put her in fake danger to see if Chad Yugi will save her, but they all fail. Luckily for her, she gets caught in a plot by an insane bomber who makes people play games to figure out where he places their bombs. Because of course he plays a game. Which is enough to bring out Yami, which Taya actually witnesses Yugi transforming, confirming her suspicions. And that's when Not Atem manages to catch the mad bomber by playing his game. And now Taya has the exciting prospect of having 2 boyfriends. Wow, what a lucky bitch. Episode 1-5, Scary Woman Can't Transform. Taya now knows Yugi is also Yugi, but doesn't really know why Yugi suddenly becomes Yugi. That doesn't matter though, as Yugi gets a love letter from Risa Kageyama, a pretty girl from a rich school who's determined to riz Yugi, which has Taya maybe a little bit jelly? But it turns out Risa just wants Yugi's rare Duel Monsters card, cause that's back, and also, there are 3 of her. Nothing a good shadow game can't— oh whoa, never mind, cause they steal Yugi's Millennium Puzzle and say they'll give it back if he wins a duel. What a twist, it's not a shadow game, it's just a straight up duel. Also, during this duel, the 3 have a special machine that makes projections of all the cards. Starting to look familiar, huh? Unfortunately, Yugi is too much of a beta to win, and that's when suddenly Kaiba arrives, who knows the 3 sisters as just some petty duelist, and takes over the duel for Yugi, revealing he has obtained another Blue Eyes White Dragon. Wondering why he helped, Kaiba just says it's because the only one who will beat Yugi is him, and he leaves. Episode 16, Sudden Turnaround, Threat of the Doctor's Gown. Find out Joey has a sister named Serenity, who's weak and constantly in the hospital. Yugi goes with him to visit her, and while there, Joey falls for a nurse, Miyuki. Unfortunately, a scummy doctor also has his eyes on Miyuki, and he's more interested in playing golf than actually tending to his patients, so Miyuki gives him a good old backswing. That's a golf term, right? So the doctor lies, saying Miyuki was too busy to help him out when he ordered her to take care of a patient. Too bad for him, Joey was with Miyuki at the time, and he threatens to expose the doctor's lie, but Doc pulls the Uno reverse card, saying if Joey interferes, Serenity is out in the streets. And now Joey is stuck crying some manly tears, which brings out the dog in Yugi. And he sicks zombies on the doctor. Cool. Part 17, Close Match, a model's invitation. Famous model Eileen Rao has arrived in Japan, not for business, but for shonen games, as she is the 3rd of Kaiba's 4 heavenly jobbers. Also, as it happens, Taya is a big fan, so Eileen uses this to lure her and Yugi to her house, where she does something to Taya and makes her freeze in place. It's not quite clear how this is happening, but she's going to feed Taya to her pet tiger. which I guess she brought with her. Man, the airfare must have been insane. Unless Yugi beats her in Raijinha, some made-up game from some made-up country called India. And look, admittedly, all the past games have been kind of boring, usually ending in a few minutes, which is why I haven't been talking about them. This one, though, is actually kind of interesting. Where the game is mostly a guessing game. You kind of put two pieces together and like certain pieces beat the other, but Eileen uses putting Taya in danger and Yugi's inexperience to predict what pieces he's going to play. So then Atem kind of does a cool strategy where he instead relies on luck, picking the pieces blindly to see what would happen, and then using probability on what pieces she has left to figure out what the best move would be to win. Pretty cool seeing actual strategy and mind games being used in one of these games. Yugi even beats her so bad that she falls in love with him. Hey, nice going, Yug. And as a final farewell to Kaiba, she says Yugi is better than him. Damn, get fucking wrecked, Seto. Episode 18, Don't Touch the Forbidden Game. After using his gamer skills with a Z to help a classmate Imori deal with some bullies, he starts to take a liking to Yugi. Like, a real liking to Yugi, and he invites him to his house to show him his super rare one-of-a-kind game. This game, according to Jisan, is Dragon Block, an ancient game that, if it's ever unsealed, bad stuff's gonna happen. And the Millennium Puzzle agrees, as it has a reaction to the game. Well, I'm sure nothing bad will happen as long as the game stays sealed. Oh, whoops. Well, I'm sure the consequences aren't that bad. Only an island in Japan sinks. But even worse than that, now Imori is acting like a dick, and even steals Yugi's Millennium Puzzle, and Yugi has to win a game of Dragon Block by himself to get it back. The game they play here, it's like Mahjong, but worse. Oh, also, this is a shadow game, and the loser loses their soul, and Yugi loses. Man, you kinda suck, Yugi. Luckily, he manages to get to the Millennium Puzzle first, so Yami is here to carry him yet again. Number 19, Big Melee Popularity Contest. A popularity contest is held at the school. The two main competitors are MIHO and some third-year girl we will never see again, so I'm not going to say her name. It doesn't matter, except it was funny that Joey also entered the contest because the prize was expensive tickets to a musical, so he could scalp them. The important thing is, in this episode, Yugi meets a strange boy who gets memory blackouts sometimes, just like Yugi, and at the end, another kid sees Yugi saying that's the guy his big brother is always talking about. Seems some strange happenings are afoot. Episode 20, I, for some reason, stopped writing down the names of the episodes in my notes, so you can see them on screen. I'm sure you know what they are. Well, we learn immediately that the kid we saw in the last episode was Kaiba's Ototo, Mokuba, and that Kaiba's dad is on the way home, and he needs to prepare. But there's an important Duel Monsters match coming up between Kaiba Corp's rival Omega Town. So, to take his place, Kaiba unleashes Daimon, the man who taught Kaiba games, and the last of his 4 heavenly gamers. However, Daimon is special, being so old, all of his insides are artificial, and he can only last 3 hours outside of his tube. And way to go, Yugi. He makes the car Daimon was in crash, so after rushing him to the hospital, Yugi befriends the old man as he reminds Daimon of younger Kaiba. Kaiba comes to retrieve Daimon, once again reaffirming that him and Yugi are united by fate or something. We then see Kaiba welcome his dear old dad by performing a hostile takeover of Kaiba Corp. What a great son. And to celebrate his new presidency, he sends Daimon to beat Yugi. So they kidnap Taya. Man, if I had $1 for every time Taya is used as motivation for Yugi for the rest of Yu-Gi-Oh, I'd have like $10. Now, it is another beta Duel Monsters duel. The cool thing here is that this is the first duel where a trap card is mentioned. It's kind of neat. Also, the closest Yugi has come to saying Heart of the Cards. Yugi wins, of course. Like, do I even have to say that? Number 21, this episode. So guess what? We're actually going to be getting proper arcs now. That's right, because that strange boy from before transfers into Yugi's class, and now we know his name's Bakura, who we see is in possession of a similar item to Yugi. Also, Kaiba's done fucking around, as this time he has decided to kidnap Granddad to force Yugi to face him and his brother. But that's not all. If he loses, his friends will get punished too. After some Bruce Lee guy does some stuff, don't ask, the gang head to Kaiba Land, Kaiba's new amusement park, to save Jisan. Yugi and gang arrive in time. Episode 22. Yugi and gang arrive in time to see Kaiba whoop Granddad's ass in Duel Monsters, because I guess he just wanted to show that he can do that. Also to show off his third Blue Eyes White Dragon. That's right, he's got 3 of them. He then informs the gang about his great new tower called Death T, which sounds like a toad in Paper Mario, but it's a tower where each floor has a different game to beat. And of course, Kaiba and Mokuba are at the top waiting for Yugi. The first game is Laser Tag, which surprisingly MIHO wins for them due to luck. The second is some weird shit with switches and figuring out which one is which that Yugi actually manages to solve himself without using Yami. Wow, small Yugi actually did something. Now that's what I call character development. Episode 2-3. The next floor, the group have to dodge blocks, and thanks to Taya's dancing, she's able to understand the rhythm the blocks are falling and manages to get everyone out. No! It should have been MIHO. Well, after that, Yugi can't hide it anymore and tells everyone he sometimes gets a little bit possessed by an ancient Egyptian pharaoh. It's natural for kids going through puberty. But Joey says that doesn't matter, because they're Nakama, and Nakama don't care if you get possessed by an ancient Egyptian pharaoh that looks like a hotter version of you. They are still Nakama. Too bad Mokuba doesn't care about that, because now it's his turn to face Yugi. But thanks to friendship, Yugi is no longer afraid, and seems now he can transform into Yami at will. And despite Mokuba rigging a game of capsule monsters giving him the stronger ones, Yugi uses actual tactics to beat him. Kaiba figured this was expected and even subjects Mokuba to a punishment game, but Yugi saves him at the last second, and now he heads to the final floor to face Kaiba. Meanwhile, Joey and MIHO sneak off to try to find Grandpa and also find Tristan, but to save them they have to fight, the guy from that Luck episode and the brown girl, I forget their names, it doesn't matter, in a type of fighting game using Joey as the character and MIHO controlling. And they win thanks to friendship and Korean backdashing. Meanwhile, it's the fated duel between Kaiba and Yugi, and we actually see some cards that would later be associated with these guys in the future, like Winged Dragon, Guardian of the Fortress 1, Sagi the Dark Clown, Gaia the Fierce Knight, Swords of Revealing Light, and Yugi manages to win the duel using a little card called Exodia. Oh, and he wins because of friendship, of course. That's when Atem uses a little bit of mind crushing to help Kaiba get rid of his dark energy. And the day is saved, with everyone returning home, but it's not over, as Bakura has been watching the whole thing on the sidelines, and after he saw Yugi awaken, something in him started to awaken too, and now he says it's his turn to face Yugi. Episode 25, Feeling Alive. Bakura's had a rough time transferring schools. It seems like every school he goes to, his friends mysteriously get put into comas. Huh, that's weird, and kinda creepy. Also, Bakura hears this creepy voice in his head all the time. I wonder if any of that has anything to do with that ancient Egyptian necklace he's wearing. Nah. Either way, the gang decide to go visit Bakura at his house today. And might I say, Bakura, you're looking positively evil today. And they all decide to play a game of Monster World. It's basically this world's version of Dungeons & Dragons, but with actual game pieces. With the goal to beat the evil Zorc. Yes, Zorc. That's a real thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! But it turns out that the pieces actually contain the souls of all those comatose people Bakura once called friends, and that now includes Yugi and his pals. Oh no, who can save them? Oh yeah, luckily Yugi has a buy one get one free on souls in his body. So now that Yami Yugi is here, he can actually play the game against Bakura. And this is weirdly the first time the Yugis have actually met and talked to each other. I didn't really realize that until I saw this. Yugi figures out that Bakura has been cheating by rolling the dice a special way, and starts using it himself, causing Bakura to change the rule to dropping it. Thanks to that, Yami Yugi is able to get everyone to Zorc's castle. Oh wait, I don't think I said episode 26. Episode 26, but we're on episode 27 now. It doesn't matter, it's the last episode. And even though they're all at Zorc's castle, Bakura has an ace up his sleeve. Mind Dice. Every dungeon master has one, I mean, come on. It deals one-hit KOs to everyone with a super critical. But they live because, say it with me now, because of friendship. Oh, and also Bakura, the OG one, has begun fighting back against the spirit and starts manipulating the outcome by taking back his body. It even gets his soul into the game somehow with, you know what, if there's ever a question of why something happens in Yu-Gi-Oh! And they don't explain it, just assume friendship. That's when Zorc digivolves into Super Zorc and unleashes a super attack that Bakura sacrifices himself to save everyone from. Luckily, the Yugis figure out that Zorc in this form has a very obvious weakness in the form of a giant eye on his chest. Yeah, Zorc's weakness is the same weakness as a boss in Zelda. Despite getting a direct hit, Bakura and Zorc have one last turn, and he rigs the dice with Shadow Game powers to get a super critical. But then, friendship stops him. And look, you're gonna hear me say that a lot, and just know I'm not kidding whenever I say friendship saves the day in this series. When I say that, I actually mean it. Either way, this frees Bakura for the Millennium Ring. Thank God, we'll never see that evil version of Bakura again. And they all go to school now as friends. The end. Yep, that's the end of the Toei Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. Except it super isn't, because I guess Yu-Gi-Oh! Is more popular than they thought, so a few months after it aired, a 30-minute OVA was released theatrically, which certain sites count as a movie, even though it isn't, it's a 30-minute OVA. It's also not really that interesting to me, at least today. For the time, I guess I could see why it was pretty cool. This movie is basically a pilot to the eventual Duel Monsters focused show that we're going to see. It sees a kid named Shogo obtain the mystical Red Eyes Black Dragon, the yin to Blue Eyes White Dragon's yang. And Kaiba, wanting rare cards and to beat Yugi, he holds a special Duel Monsters tournament, and attendance is mandatory. Seriously, Kaiba sends his goons to beat up Yugi and Shogo and steal his Millennium Puzzle to force Yugi to show up. You know, Kaiba, you could just ask him. Yugi will probably show up to play a game, that's kind of his thing. Surprisingly, little Yugi's pissed off about this, and the two basically have the first kind of duel we know and love, with prototype duel discs, holograms, and Yugi even summons Dark Magician for the first time. Kaiba even Wang jangles together a poverty version of Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Hey, we even get a fusion. Okay, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves now. Let's just finish off the season, okay? But yeah, I'm not gonna really go over this OVA. It's fine. It's just not that big a deal to me. That's why it's not getting its own video. I'm just throwing it in at the end because that's kind of what it feels like, just a little extra thing. But yeah, that's it for Season 0 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Overall, it was okay. I found a lot of the games to be really overly complicated and not expanded enough to really get invested in them. Really, the only one was Duel Monsters. I can see why people gravitated towards it. And I'm not just saying that because I know the card game today. It's because it had clear, simple rules that were easy to follow. Despite the occasional, well, my plant may be weak to your fire, but it's in the rainforest, so it gains 10,000 attack argument, it was still relatively easy to follow once you understood the basics. But it was cool to see all the origins to characters, backstories, and even cards, which I always just accepted as a kid were in the Duel Monsters show and never really questioned why certain things were the way they were. I wouldn't really recommend this series to anyone but the most diehard of Yu-Gi-Oh fans that wants to see where it all started, because it's really not great. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not great. But yeah, with Duel Monsters clearly being the standout game from the series, Takahashi decided to start focusing on it more in the manga. And then, as we all know, it got an anime adaptation in the early 2000s. It got dubbed by the greatest dubbing company of all time. Then we got a whole school about playing children's card games. And then we got a whole thing about riding bikes while playing children's card games. And then we got... Okay, I haven't really seen Zexel, so I don't really know what that's about. But I assume it's something about aliens playing children's card games. So now that we had that quick look on where the series started, join me next time as we finally begin this retrospective for realsies this time, as we take a look at the anime based on the card game, based on the manga, based on Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. Oh, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I feel like I should start saying that.
Don't forget to subscribe!